And some people will start saying some dumb things on how to solve it. And I was just say, oh, come on, let's have them learn that it's not possible. And all of a sudden, their solution worked better than mine. So then you realize it's not me, it's about the whole group, and everybody has different ideas, and that has come with me forever. And the idea of listening. So it was like a lifelong change with Anthony. Then we hired him in 2005, I think it was, to build a ropes course at the university. And Anthony is a psychologist, and he works a lot with experiential learning. That's why I asked you to read something on experiential learning. We had one once a year ago about the cold cycle, but we want to go further with it. And within experiential learning, Anthony has been in a lot of the conventions for experiential education. There's also the adventure education. And adventure education is what we do in Rogue, for example. So he has a lot of experience with trusted process, and so we just want to share. There's nothing very structured today. So if Anthony wants to start, or you want to eat and have them start.
I don't know how to follow that introduction. I feel really important now. So. I think I better eat.
You can eat. Ask them what experiential education is. I say somebody read something like that.
Yeah? Anyone want to take a stab at experiential education?
Or if you want to, everybody to introduce themselves, whatever.
No,
you're an expert.
It's not necessary. So what do you think about experiential education? What would you say if you read the article or you had an idea already? What are we even talking about when we say experiential education?
I think one of the things that experiential education shows us is that not all knowledge is of the same type. There are kinds of knowledge that really cannot be transferred verbally or even in text, in conventional language. And that if we're going to learn that knowledge, it has to come via some other means. Yes. Right? Like riding a bicycle. You can give the best lecture, the best course on how to ride a bicycle at the blackboard, or with the best technology using PowerPoint and multimedia, and you're never going to be able to teach somebody how to ride a bicycle. You've got to get up on the bicycle and fall off. And that moment of failure is probably your first great moment of learning.
Yeah.
Right? Which no one can tell you.
Yes. Yeah, I think to a large degree, learning is experiential. That just almost anything we actually learn, we learn by doing, we learn through experience. So in one way, it's almost experiential learning is learning. But it's trying to like zero in on that idea of not just being intellectual learning, but being doing learning, to be involved in the process itself, and seeing that as important. Yeah. That's a great example of a bicycle, though. It's perfect.
One of the issues that impacted me when reading Paul was this phrase about learning full of tension and conflict.
Yes.
Process. And I was listening to Carla because the way Carla expressed learning was not full of tension and conflict. It was the other way around. She was very happy. Mm-hmm. At the end of the process, she resolved it. So I think there is something there that needs some exploration about how we really address learning depending on the background of each individual and what expectations they do have.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think about a different, I actually have not read this particular article, but it makes me think of a little bit about, so psychologist Relly Nadler has written a lot about experiential learning. And he has a model that talks about disequilibrium and the importance of disequilibrium for you to be in a little bit of uncertainty in order to be able to learn. It's like when we ride the bicycle, we get on it, everything is tuned toward do I have my balance? I'm going to crash. It's like we are fully there, but there's an uncertainty that drives the learning to some degree. And his idea is you want to allow some disequilibrium, some unexpected behavior. The voice goes louder, or because as soon as we think we know what this is all about and we know what's coming next, we kind of begin to go along and we begin to think about home and we drift away and we're not right there with it anymore, So to have a little bit of uncertainty is a good thing. If you don't want too much, because then it becomes chaos, right? Yeah.
What's the name of the psychologist?
Really Nadler.
Okay, Nadler.
Yeah. Nadler and Butler wrote Processing the Experience, which is a book. It's very good. It brings together a lot of theory, and they've got a lot of practical experiential work under their belt. They've been doing it for years. So.
And that disequilibrium area really fits with the Austrian school.
Yeah.
We like to be able to disequilibrium instead of equilibrium. So that's the lines with also the process of learning, the process of the market. So that's very interesting.
I have one question. It seems clear from the methodology that you always have to have the experience and then derive the concepts or what you have learned from the process. Would it be possible to first begin with concepts and afterwards have the experience, or it has to be the other way around always?
I wouldn't say it has to be in a particular way. I would say that for me, maybe to have a deeper understanding of the concept, there has to be that experiential component to it. But whether it comes before or after, I don't think is so important. That would be my answer to that. I don't know, would you think that would be true?
Even in the article I was reading, they talk more about a spiral instead of a process of 4 steps. So you could even start with a different one and then finish in a different place. Do you follow me?
Yeah, the whole idea of the cycle is, it can happen, like the cycle they see on the picture in the beginning, the experience.
They should research on their own.
Oh, I see, okay.
But I can run for you.
So you have experience at the top, and then you have reflecting, and then generalizing, and then applying. Those are the 4. One thing I would have to say about models, from my perspective, it's just a belief, and that is that somewhere along the way, someone said to me something that made a lot of sense, is that models are not reality. Models are windows into looking at the reality of the situation or trying to approach it. So a model is always just going to be limited because it's just one window that we're looking at. So the experience that's happening, you could use this model and go through and see certain things and pull them out. But it doesn't mean that this is reality, Just the same as like Tuckman has the stages of group development, where you have a group forming, and norming, and storming, and transforming, and performing. But it's just one window to look through. It's not like it's always going to happen, it's not going to happen in a particular way, and that kind of thing. But in this, what I was going to say is, this could be looked at in a really macro level, right? That we have in our life and experience, and we're thinking about things, and we're drawing conclusions, we're forming who we are, and then we're being that person out in the world. So it could be a really macro lifetime thing that you're looking at, but it also could be a split decision, or a split thing that happens, or a really quick thing that happens. Like I come over and tap him on the shoulder. It's like, wait, he just had an experience. He tapped me on the shoulder. He has to think, why did he tap me on the shoulder? Why is he doing that, And then he's thinking, maybe he's trying to make a point, and maybe that's something about this talk. And then how could I apply that out here in the world? So it could be something that is like really quick, or it could be, and that's I think is part of the spiral, it could be something that you think of at a really grand scale, but it can also be something that happens in a moment, really quickly. But again, it's just a model, you know.
How do you include the purpose, or lack of purpose?
The purpose?
The purpose is because one of the key issues in learning is whether or not you have the purpose or the
Yes.
drive to learn.
Yes.
And that is something that in some areas, well, for example, the example that you
Just
posed, you told somebody else, well, that has no implicit purpose. It was something that happened. It was spontaneous.
Yes.
But in other cases, you have a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
which will happen because you want to learn something. So how do you make coincidence into those two scenarios?
You know, it's a great question. It's interesting to see how that applies. You know, there's been a lot of stuff around purpose, and I think purpose is incredibly important. It's like one of the things that we were just up on the mountain talking about was, well, how do you do this activity? How do you do this activity with a group? And I said, well, first of all, you have to think about what is your purpose? You know, what are the outcomes that you're looking for, you know? And then you can adjust the activity if you have the ability to better suit that purpose. But it's always driven by the purpose. So it's like, what is the outcome you're seeking? And sometimes you have the ability to change certain elements of the activity to better suit your purpose. And you hope that there would be this connection that would happen, where people would have the aha, you know, and they would learn and everything was great. But it doesn't always turn out, but you hope that's, you know, the idea with experiential learning is that even when you're doing something chaotic or it seems like, why, you know, why is that? That the idea would be that you could be stopped in the middle of whatever is happening and give some sort of rationale about why you were doing this thing. You know, it's not just because you know it's a great activity and you just happen to throw it in, right? It's to an outcome, to a purpose. It's diagnostic, prescriptive. This group, this class needs to be having something. And if I work with the environment here in this activity, it might create this outcome, right? Diagnostic, prescriptive, and then an outcome. But I've never thought about, like, where is purpose in this particular cycle so much, you know? I could see it fitting in different places, maybe most on the end, because you've thought about stuff, you're looking at stuff, and then you're looking at applying that out in the world. So this would be, how can I apply that? How can I do, what is it I'm looking for out in the world in application that would be my purpose? How can I apply this? I don't know.
What I was hearing Raphael say is that this purpose is sometimes the catalyst or the spark that makes the student open to learning to begin with.
Yes.
So that, you know, what is that thing that fires the imagination? And very often they're looking for, you know, a rationale. I mean, the most common question of students is, why do we have to do this?
Why do we have to learn this?
Why do I have to learn this? They want to know that ahead of time. They don't want to learn it first and then realize, there are all these applications. They want to know from the beginning where they start. And I think that is a real challenge. How do you get the attention of people to buy in before, maybe even before the experience? You know, like, why do I want to go to the ropes, man? You know, the mountain of Charlotte and do ropes?
Exactly.
It's a little hard to sell. You know, ex ante.
Yeah.
What is
So-
part that unites all this learning process?
Yes.
So really,
The best thing I would say is to, if that was the case, that if I was dealing with that reluctance, right, there's a couple of different things. One is that you would have maybe already established some rapport or relationship that would trust me, this could be valuable kind of thing that you could rely on a bit. But maybe you actually have an activity that is one that brings out the point of, just because we don't see why we're doing this activity, after doing the activity, we see, we did get something. You know, so it could be something that is in the classroom, like at Kushes, we always play around and do different things with Kush balls and different kinds of activities. But there's many, many, many activities that are experiential that you wouldn't need to go to the ropes course for, or the challenge course. But that would be a way, is to sanction the behavior, to say, yes, you're right. We really shouldn't be learning things if it's not going to be purpose, you know? Sanction the behavior, not fight it, right? Because if we're fighting, we get into this, we often don't go anywhere, you know? But, you know, where it happens, when my experience is in corporate groups, we're dealing with business people come up, ha, we don't need this crap, you know? This is like,
That's Carla getting there with us.
So they come out and they're in their body posture. They sit in it there, and they're out in the woods, and they're like this. They're like, you know, you show me why I need to spend my day when so much is happening back at the office, you know, that it's, you know, and if we fight that, it's lost, right? We say right from the beginning, we are glad that you're skeptical. We want it to be worth your while. We ask you to give us an hour and see what's happening for you. And if it's, you know, if it's not going, we want you to be truthful. If we're not going in your direction that's valuable for you, let us know. We'll change it. We'll have you go on. We don't want to waste your time, you know. And our experience is, and then also to say, your level of participation is completely up to you. If you want to just watch, that's fine. If you want to contribute by saying an idea, that's fine. But not get in there and do it yourself. That's okay. Just say an idea. If you want to like encourage people, but not even give ideas, that's fine. Or just watch. Your participation is your choice. What we see, what happens? They're like this. And then we throw an activity out, and not everybody is like this, right? Not everybody is like this. There's a few that, just like we say, okay, how can we balance this knife up like this without using any other materials other than the surface of this table? I'm just making this up, right? And they say, what? It's not possible. Oh yes, it's possible. There is a way. And so it's like suddenly people are like pulled in, and even the people who are like this, they try maybe for a little while, maybe the first activity or two, they're like this, but finally they have their own ideas, and they want it, it's like, get out of the way, I just know how to do this, and they get in there and they get involved, you know? And so now they're pulled in to spite themselves. And often those people that are the most resistant at the end are the most singing praises of the experience, because it was more meaningful for them. It was, they weren't won over at the beginning. It took them a while, but then they were like, yes, I believe this is valuable. It's a valuable thing. So it was good for us to be here.
So what I'm really hearing you say is that it's by posing or confronting a problem or a question that we're able to hook the students. That's really the catalyst, that's the spark. You have to come up with a question that they're willing to engage, or pose a problem they're willing to pursue.
You create an environment that pulls them in and engages them in some way. And often that can be accomplished in any place, you know, in a classroom, anywhere. It doesn't have to be. But you say, this is the kind of thing, this problem-solving process, for example, is the kind of thing we'll do there. And some more things, some other things that are also important.
Yes. We usually have this discussion with Carlos about the structure in this topic about courses. For example, Carlos uses an approach that in the first day of the class they see the whole picture of what they are going to be learning and the application of the different techniques. And in my case, I tend to focus on very specific topics, and until the last class they see the whole picture. So we tend to discuss what is the best approach. In this case, it's not Socratic practice, it's traditional courses. But I think that it makes a difference in terms of if you are going to be approaching from general to specific or specific to general.
Yes.
In the case of Carlos, I think that it's very valuable for the students because most of them are really pragmatic students.
Mhm.
So they want to know what are we going to be learning in this course. So I don't know if we want to complement, but I have tried the different approaches. In some courses, I use the approach of Carlos. And it really makes a difference in terms of the students.
I usually try to do a game. The first day of class, I usually do a game with the group. And the idea is...
It's an activity. It's an activity. It's an
like
experience.
But I don't be bullied, but it's a game, it's a game.
It's a game. It's a game. It's fun.
And what I'm trying to do with activities is to have them. Let me start another. The way I received my engineering during my undergrad, I began with calculus, and before, and even when we began with calculus, we began with definitions. The first day class, let's define A, like, no. And it was like, when I was in fourth year, that I understood why was all that given to me before. And nevertheless, I enjoyed, talking about things that I didn't know what they were used for. And I did my learning, but somehow I thought that that was not the best way to learn those concepts. I think that with time, and I think adults, especially, are probably that. Maybe young too, but I think especially adults, they want to see what's going to be useful for, why is it useful for them. So based on that, instead of starting, I teach econometrics in one course, and that can be very mathematical. And before I start with all the theorems and everything that is behind them, I need for them to understand that it's useful. We're going to learn. I want to engage them. So that's why I use the approach where I try to have them play a real case, and in one case they have to forecast what's going to happen at rock concert in Guatemala. These are actually true cases. And I do that because I know they don't know much about the industry. So what I'm trying to do with that is to have them start with very intuitive theories about what they think they're going to happen, hunches. And then I take them through the data. I confuse them with the data because the first data points are very confusing. Some just back up, from the project, and some start to think that maybe good things are coming or get scared, so they pull away. And I try to get them emotionally through the process of forecasting, which is actually it can be really risky.
Yes.
And so, not to make this very long, but what I'm trying to say is that I try to think about activities where I believe that I'm going to be able to see how different tools are going to be used throughout the course. And I think it's worked pretty well. I try to do that with every course I teach. I try to search for that first activity where they're going to be just laughing and enjoying themselves and generating reports, actually.
Yes.
I want them I want to get them to know each other and with me too.
Yes. It's incredibly important.
I think it works pretty well. I think it has worked pretty well.
What about the possibility that the methodology depends on the topic? For example, if you have a topic which is very open, it's an open universe, in which you, for example, provide some inputs, and then the outcome could be a set of possibilities. So in that case, you cannot present previously what are going to be results. So it might depend on the topic that you are really trying to develop, what methodology you will use. So probably in there is some mixture.
In my case, the approach is, I call it the Karate Kid, because if you remember the movie, they are doing a lot of Karate Kid.
You remember the kid was
He's doing a lot of
sweater all the
drills and
time?
developing some skills, and he doesn't know
But
what I like in the case of this approach is that at the end, I perceive that they have this aha moment because they begin to realize the different applications and the connections between different topics, and they integrate in a single problem, for example. But I see the pursuit of Carlos in terms of having them to see at the beginning what they're going to be learning. So I really don't know what is the best approach in this case. This is different because it's not Socratic practice, it's traditional courses. But you have activities at the beginning, I have activities at the end. So the approach is really different. Yeah. I don't know what's the answer.
You know, it's different. And at the same time, it's both based on what is your purpose, you know? And how your diagnosis is the same. We need to engage them, we need to bring them together, and we want a particular outcome. So it's your prescription that looks different. What different drugs work for different people?
Yeah.
You know?
The process is different because in
Yes.
the case they have a lot of frustration.
Yes.
Because they don't understand why they are
Yes.
learning these topics.
Yes.
In your case, I think that you lower the barriers in terms of you are at the beginning.
In fact, I feel you provide challenges also to them. If you, it's not a frustration, but also if there is a student which is bright, he might well be interested in looking after all those details and then set up a different scenario at the end. So it is on both sides, I think, a challenge as well as a frustration. And then the problem is how are you going to really balance all those topics. And that will depend upon your audience, I believe, at the end, and the topic that you are discussing or confronting. Sorry for the interruption. Guys.
I just wanted to mention that I don't know if I'm being mathematically precise with the way I'm teaching, because I tend to not to be. In fact, I'm recording, I'm videotaping a lot of in YouTube, a lot of the theoretical aspects of the course. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I try to give a lot of cases through the course, have them do the calculations and provide them with formulas and some understanding. I do explain some of the theoretics, the intuition of the theory behind all the formulas we're using, but I'm trying to flip it in the sense that I'm trying to get them interested in the methodology. And my argument is that if they like it, they're going to want to read the book and see the details. But I think that going the other way around, it can be an obstacle to
Yes.
to
The
learning.
content itself can be challenging in and of itself.
Yeah.
So if they're more bought into the overall need for that content.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, that's the way to put it. I'm trying to have them become interested in the subjects because I'm hopeful that they are going to do the precise learning by themselves afterwards. So I don't know if I'm being academically precise in some of the concepts, but I'm trying to get them engaged. Yeah. Instead of taking all the course through formulas and making a couple of cases, and at the end having them say, okay, but what is this useful for?
I might change the subject, but one of the things we've been talking a lot is about the breathing during the Socratic practice. I'm not sure, but the experience could be the reading or the video they saw, and then we will go through this process. And in ropes, the what, Anthony does this system, which is kind of structured, and it might help some of us in order to go through this area. And if I understand it right, the idea is if the students learn this process, whenever they have an experience in life, they're going to follow this process in order to make it a learning way. Entonces, if you...
Yeah, and it's just, it fits, it's actually two separate. What Carl's talking about is the idea that of having a model around processing, around questioning. Questions are, from my perspective, questions are like an art. That you could like spend your life perfecting your art and your ability to ask significant questions. And by that I mean just a question that will reach the purpose that you're hoping it will. I mean, there can be so many different ways that could be happening. It's almost, questions can shut things down and questions can draw people deeper. And if you have the intuition or the ability or you work or you're even like conscious and really thoughtful about the difference between how how you ask a question that you might have the opportunity to create and facilitate more dialogue and understanding and exchange based simply on how the question was asked. So that's part of it. But then there's also like models that can be helpful if you get lost or start thinking that you're not so sure about where to go with it. And what, so what, now what is a real quick basic questioning that relates to the experiential learning cycle, where here you're looking just for you're just looking for the actual observation, okay? Observations. It's not a assumption or generalization that you've made. It's your shirt is blue. He's speaking to him right now and taking the plate away. He came in and spoke to him and then took the plate away. I don't have to make some assumptions about what just happened there. Okay? That his job is to do that would be an assumption. You know, maybe it's not. You know, but we so quickly go from this over into this, but without first just opening it up for what did you see? What happened? Yes, what?
No, I'm sorry. In business, this might be the facts.
Yeah.
Let's say we're doing a case.
Yeah. But even facts can be really tricky because they get into this a lot of times in regard. This is really pure, almost sensory kinds of, so what happened? And the other nice thing about this questioning is, so what? It's actually, I don't know if it's true here in this country, but in the States, it's really hard to get people just to say, so what? and they want to embellish it, so what? So what do you think, how do you feel about that? That's a really different question. Think, feel, what? You know, it takes people to a whole different place, right? But if you just say, so what happened? Right? That is very inviting. I can contribute. Maybe my contribution is not particularly helpful. Yeah, thank you. And you just keep going on, you know. But it's very open. It's not asking too much, right? So what else happened? And it gives people an opportunity to contribute, okay? When it's really basic, like that. Yeah. And then it gets a little more risky as it goes around. Now, what does that mean? You know, what are the assumptions about that, or what learning could we draw from that? You know, it's like here, Sally reached out and helped John across the wall. Okay, that's a what kind of thing? That's a Sally reached out and helped John across the wall. Now, I could make an assumption that Sally is really helpful to people. Right? Or she's a really kind person, right? Or she really likes John. You know, there's all kinds of, so what does that mean? The generalization, right? That could happen. But maybe the generalization that we get is, it's helpful to have a hand sometimes when we need help. It's helpful to reach out. Yeah? And then the application is, now what could we do with that? Well, sometimes we need to look for opportunities where we can help and reach out. I'm just going through this with some, like, real quickly, yeah. But that's the way the question works, yeah.
I think he was just thinking about that series of circles there. And if you flip those circles, I believe that you have a deductive method. If you have the experience before, it is an inductive method. So you have the both sides of the coin. The deductive method, generalizing, and then you go to applying, and then you go to the experience,
yes.
And you reflect again, and then that's
exactly
a flip of the model.
Yes.
So in this model, you have induction and deduction in there.
Well,
that's how I saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
Might not be like that.
Well, I think, you know, the way the model is set up is that this is a continuous cycle, and Carl was talking about the spiral. It's like, you know, in the way I saw it initially is you can take this out into the world, or you can go back into another simulation where you get to practice and see if there's truth in it, you know, and that kind of thing. So this can also be a model of change where you are willing to look at your own behavior and reflect on how that could impact others, and then change or not change, and go on, right? So there's other ways that you could, that's more of a linear kind of, it's like you know, I talk too much, right? I talk too much. My tendency is I talk too much, right? I can look at that and say, do I talk too much? Okay, let's say, here's a question around this way of looking at it. It's like, as a facilitator, my facilitator is just asking the question, Anthony, are you aware that you talk a lot in the group? And at that point, I have an opportunity to own that, to reflect on it, and to say, yes, that is me, or no, I really don't see that, right? If I accept it, then I can go on, if it is true, right, to say, but I like to talk a lot, it's helpful, and stay that way. Or I can experiment with changes about how I can be, right? So that's sort of a psychology kind of about how it could happen for an individual, for a person. Am I muddying the water? Is it too much where we're going now? I'm throwing out another model on top of this one. But it made me think, what you were saying made me think of that. Yes, thanks. So what now what? The idea is that there are questions that you could have that would be different at each of those stations. And it's not often in a pure facilitative way. It's often there's one thing I would say about, I think we got into this last time for those of you people who were here, that there's like pure facilitation where whatever the group offers, that's what you take, and you don't like go in a particular another direction or prove some other point or whatever. In other words, you're purely facilitating what comes up within the process. Yes? That would be pure facilitation. This is, you call this. And then there's also what I would call facilitating, which I think is probably more what you would be maybe doing, where you've got some concepts and ideas that you think are really important for people to understand and grasp. And how you are asking your questions helps. It doesn't tell them, right? But it helps guide them toward a particular idea or learning. But the hope is by the time they get there, they got it. You didn't give it to them. They got it. And that's tricky, but I think incredibly important. I think it's like, it's so much different than, it's like, if I tell you this is important, you can either believe me or not believe me, but if you experience that it's important, and you come to it yourself, then it's more lasting. And I think that's how the questioning process can be really valuable as you develop it. Yes, thanks.
Maybe change the topic. Do you see any relationship between the entrepreneurial mindset and the learning styles?
Yeah. When you speak of learning styles, tell me a little more.
Sorry, I just other on the articles. I just saw that there are different learning styles, but I just want to know more about that.
Yeah. What styles are we talking about?
No, we didn't say
Like
that.
Gardner, like Gardner's
Kinesthetic,
multiple
yeah.
intelligence.
Like what, like Myers-Briggs kind of thing, or
Visual, kinesthetic, or what are you talking about?
And then we're talking about like Gardner's.
Like Gardner's type of intelligence, music, and
I think it's the same.
and this one has the learning style where the converger,
Oh yeah,
diverger,
okay.
assimilator. Maybe we read the same one, an accommodator.
But,
You know, I don't know, that would be my answer, I don't know. I know there's a lot of work that's been done in connecting up different ways of learning, processing information, different personality, how my personality relates to my entrepreneurship. I certainly want to just throw out this thing I heard just last week on NPR on the radio, with a study that they had done. I forget where it was now, but they had identified the single best predictive factor in someone being successful as an entrepreneur was grit. Grit. They actually used the word grit, and what they described it as someone who doesn't give up. They're tenacious. It's very important to have passion about it and want to do it, but that's not enough. It's to also keep at it and not give up. And those people, regardless of how smart, grit. Yeah, grit. There's a movie called True Grit that came out. You know, it's like, but they were looking at lots of different factors. You know, education, experience, all these things. They're all played a part, but the one that stood out for successful entrepreneurs were people that were tenacious, that stayed in and they stayed in and they stayed in until it worked, until they got it. You know, and of course, what keeps them in there is their passion for what they're trying to do and their interest in all that. But not it. But I could even have passion for it, but also give up too easily. You know. So I don't know.
Yeah, we're thinking about like there are some people that pay attention to details.
Details.
And there are people who try to think in terms of generalizations,
Yes.
theoretical, like the mathematical or logical. Because last time I was talking with Carlos about the different logical processes like deduction, induction, and abduction. You know, the best explanation. I think that maybe the entrepreneur is someone who doesn't like to get the truth about something, doesn't want to have the precise solution for something, but who is satisfied with a preliminary, just
What works?
What works, for instance. So my intuition was that it also has some relationship with the way he sees the work, he's gathering information and processing information. And so that was, I was talking about the learning style.
The learning
style.
Yeah, and in my experience, the instrument I'm most familiar with, maybe something that you guys sometimes use, is the disc. And it's got, you know, it's sort of like an easy Myers-Briggs kind of thing. It's like D is dominant. It's like forceful. It's like a leadership kind of personality style, right? D is dominant. I is influencing. Influencing is where we talk. We really want to be connected, and that's how we get things done. D-I-S. S is safety, or steadiness, security. These are people who move very slowly, and they're very cautious, and they're very dependable, right? And D-I-S-C is conscientious. That means they're very attentive to detail. They're very precise. They want to know. They want to know the right way. There are 1,000 ways to do it, but I only want to do it the right way. And there is only one right way in their mind. And that's the very, very best way, okay? And so, depending on the driving questions from a psychological place, driving questions for a D is, can I do it? And so, how can they prove they can do it? And who are they trying to prove it to? Themselves, right? So they are like stepping forward and being dominant. I can do this, and they step into it, right? Influencing is, am I good enough? Am I okay? Just how about am? Who's going to tell me that? Other people are going to tell me. And so I spend lots of energy developing these relationships, right? And S is, am I safe? Am I okay? So I'm going to spend a lot of my time like really making sure that I'm okay, I'm safe. I don't. It's hard for me to make a decision because if I decide this, it might be not so good. If I decide that, and then C is, am I right? Already mentioned that one. So those are driving questions for those people. But typically, leaders are Ds. They're people that step into it, and their idea is ready, shoot, aim, right? It's like they don't care about the details. They don't care about how you feel about it. They care, does it work? Does it get things done? Does it happen, right? And sometimes they're gruff and they step on other people, and they get feedback that they don't care about other people and that kind of thing. But that's just the style that often leaders tend to. That's how they're often seen. Yeah. I don't know if that. Throwing in a lot of stuff at it. As Carl today, I said, Carl, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. I don't know what to talk about. You guys are. It's good. It's a good process for me.
I told him, they talk if they don't.
Yeah.
Just ask a question. Ask a what question and a so what.
I'm on that scale, by the way, I'm a DI. I'm both. I'm like, I step into it to try to prove it to myself, but also relationships are very important. I want you to like me, so I smile a lot, and that kind of stuff, So, but I think that stuff is valuable. To me, I've seen it be valuable for people to have that kind of idea, to know that all those things are important. We're not all Ds. I mean, I tend to like to be in that room, but it's not me. It's like we are all of those things. But for us to see that we are also suddenly have, there's no way we all get put in 4 boxes. But to see that there's value in doing it differently. There's value in the details. There's value in the cautiousness. It's important.
This is sort of a footnote. What else would you recommend people take? They want to do like a Myers-Briggs kind of analysis. Do you have any other favorites?
Besides those two, Myers-Briggs and DS are the two that come to my mind most quickly.
Franklin Covey, where we have now Michelle and Alejandra. You have one of those studies, ¿cómo se llama? Bensinger. Bensinger.
Oh, no,
It's Franklin Covey's 7 Habits of a Successful Person.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They work with
We
that
do,
one.
mainly the concept is that you have your brain and then you have your right side and then your left side.
Mm-hmm.
So the right frontal side is your creative side, and
Yes.
here you have the entrepreneurist and all the creative things. Then you have the left frontal side, and then you will have dominant, would be the leader,
Mm-hmm.
just get things done and doesn't care about relationships so much. Then you would have the right basal side, which is all about heart and relationships and connects with people, and if you forget the birthday, then you kill them. And you would have the left basal side, which be accountants, for
The
example.
details.
You have the
Yes,
details and
yeah.
perfection, and if you move the agenda, then they just freak out, and that's how you get the. And it's a nice thing that I have figured. For example, I started doing that in my classes to ask, since we have this tool, well, I would like to see how many of you are, for example, this kind of thing. How do you relate to this scenario? So I can I know who is the most people in my class, and that gives me a path to see how to connect with them.
Probably helps them connect with each other as well. That's what I've seen a lot in groups is there's a more tolerance, acceptance. It's not that this person is lazy because they're slow. They come to a place of work differently, and their dependability and their steadiness in that work is an asset if I choose to see that. But I have to shift. It's also very important, the other important thing I see with groups is how to support those people. Because a lot of times we want to be supported the way we are. It's like the golden rule is really not do unto others as they would do unto you. It's sort of do unto others as they would have them do unto you.
To talk in every other's love language?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that, yeah. So the idea is that, you know, it's okay, give me direct feedback. Oh, I'm a D, I can handle it, you know, that kind of thing. That's support for me. Tell me to shut up, use a big stick, you know, and I can handle it, you know. But for someone else, that might not be very helpful, you know. So to understand that we need support in different ways, and that by my understanding what is your preference, I can better help you than just doing it the way I would like. See, an example is there was a person that worked for me. His name was Alan, and he was an S. D's and S's work really well together, by the way. Dominant and steadiness, because dominants don't like to follow through with anything. They want to get something going and then go on to something else. But steadiness guys take it on through and finish it and get it done. So there's a really nice like fit. Well, he wants a plan. If you're a cautious person, you don't want to just jump out there and do something. You want a plan. You know, my plan today was 1 minute before I walk in this room, I'm saying, Carla, who are these people? You know? But for Alan, it was like, you know, if you gave him a list of where to be and what throughout, you know, he really appreciated that. And for me, I would not think if you're doing that until I remembered that helps him do the work he does in the way he does it. It helps him, right? So I have to remember, for me, the kind of support I would like is, don't give me a plan, just point me in the right direction and let me go. Don't try to tell me how to do it exactly, right? That would be support for me, right? So to have that understanding of the differences of how to support each other, I think can be really helpful in a group.
I just came out an idea that I think many of you teach the students, they take these tests basically in first year. So it would be really easy for you to just know what the dominances are, and then just ask them at the beginning of your class. I would like to know which of you is this kind, which of you is this kind. And then when you get groups going also, then you can suggest, have a complete brain in your group. So that you would guarantee that they have a purpose, that they have this follower.
It's nice when you have that mixture. It's very nice. Because you often, even whole professions get drawn to one. It's like a company will be mostly D's, you know, sometimes, or mostly S's or I's. It's certain professions like helping professions are often lots of I's. And the great thing is they're really into helping each other and being there, but they never get anything done. Because they're like, they're really conscious, you know, are you okay today? Yeah, it's like, but they never get anything done, you know, and the D's are all getting things done, but they're stepping on each other and making people mad, and they quit, and they go out and another job, and they lose people, and, you know, so to have a little balance is good. How are we doing? We done?
I have a question for her. In your experience, your students, how have they evolved by this intermingling? For example, you have a model that are a disc. Have they become more D's, more I's, more S, more C's? How do you see the pattern evolving there? Because learning is a life process. Therefore, if you mix them, probably you are also influencing somehow the way they look at the world. What is your experience?
Well, they actually it's not this passenger thing is not something that you actually really influence that much. It's a natural attention in your brain. So it's like your natural talent. So when you work, you can add to yourself abilities that are not in your main brain side. You
your
can
hardware.
develop that.
It's not in your hardware, but you can put it in the software.
Yes, exactly. You can add things, you can learn things. It's going to be much more difficult, but if you try really hard, and it's going to cost you 100 times more to learn that. When you learn something that is already in your brain side of your brain, then it would be so much easier for you to learn that it costs you literally 100 times less of effort. So it's good for you to learn skills in every way because it makes you balanced. You need to have conscious of that. But you need to focus and to have a job on your natural talent. And then when you were asking me how I see students, it was curious because what I have not found, many are the ones that are steady, not many. Like for example, like accountants and that kind of thing, not many.
And they're studying business and
And
finance.
they're studying, so I expected that, to see many of them, but no, not so many.
But that's also the case in companies, I think. So. It's very hard to find stability. Yeah.
I think it depends on the environment because it's how
Yeah.
The larger companies that are more diverse, departments often have segments within them that are.
Yeah, we administered this test in the organizational behavior course in November of last year, thanks to Helmut, who helped to pay for partially for some of the licenses. So we made it voluntary. We brought in a facilitator, and 12 out of the 19 students paid and took the test. And then she presented the results in front of the classroom. And it was really interesting, and then they had to write just a very short essay with what they learned and how they thought they could apply it. Several of them went to show it to their bosses at work to try to talk, so when I ask you for these things, or when I'm delayed in turning something in, or when I tell you that I don't want to work with such and such because he and I don't get along, see, this was a logical explanation as to why, so it helped them to develop or at least communicate better with their bosses. And in the classroom, out of those 12, I think we had one, it's not S, it's just whatever classification you called it. But, and this person is at a company that is very results-oriented with fast growth, and he's very steady, and he has kind of a creative side, and he's got this human relationship side, and it's really difficult, according to the facilitator, I don't know if it's the Guatemala environment or in general, but for a man in this environment, he's considered soft, not gutsy. We can all walk all over him. So he has a really difficult time, fitting into his
Culture
company.
does not support it.
It's really difficult for him. But I didn't know that this was being administered in the beginning of the career, but it's great because the group witnessed. Oh, in undergrad.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we can do it too, because these kids were on the way out. They were like the last class or the last few classes before graduating, and so at least they got to be familiar with the tool, and it was going to help them. But if I knew like the classification of my 20 incoming students, it would be helpful to me, even a facilitator, to be able to customize or understand where somebody's coming from. And in some groups, you could tell when they divide themselves. If you get too many D's in one group, it's terrible. They're going to argue. They all want to be the leader. Just very little flexibility. No, I'm the one. So you do need. I completely agree that there must be a balance. You need to have a little bit of everything, and for them to understand the importance of and the assets of the other type of people represent.
What's important to know is that we're dealing with people, that we don't have to label people and
That's
say,
the danger.
this is a D, this is an I. I just got the certification in Mexico last 2 weeks, and that we have a whole brain, and that we can use a whole brain, that we have a natural preference in one spot, but we can use our auxiliaries, and that we are using a whole brain and dealing with people, and that we can deal better with people that are in our next auxiliaries, but we can do, we can help each other with people that are in in our weakness.
There's something else which troubles me when I do all this kind of tests in the minor fiction. Whenever they say it's deterministic, that's the way you are.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yes.
I think it goes against my freedom.
Yes.
So if somebody tells me you're less
That's what she is.
Remember? I did the test with a big red.
Don't question me.
But you made me change to my right brain. And to my, but I don't know, I just think it goes against you're willing to choose and to change. If it's deterministic, when people believe that's the way I am, so that's why I behave that way, and that's it.
There's dangers of
Indeed.
badly using
Yes.
the information. Yeah, personally, you can use it as an excuse, or with others, you can use it as a way to manipulate or try to like put everybody in a box and like, oh, they're just a D, we don't have to listen to them, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's dangers with the information as well.
Yes. As an interesting data, 90% of the people tend to deviate their original style. So they, in this test, they can show their competencies, they are doing the best, but it's not necessarily their preference, their natural preference. So I know I was labeled as B, and I performed very well as a D, but I'm not a D. That's what I am good at, but I am an I, natural.
You mean from childhood, right?
Yes.
Because there's a natural tendency is measured from your childhood.
Yes, yes. But you can deviate from child.
Yeah.
It depends on.
It's interesting for me, on the disc, they say it's around like, by 6 to 10 years old, it's like settled, sort of what your preferences are. But for me, many years ago, I went to a counselor to work out a problem with a coworker, and they gave us the DISC test, and it was like 30 years ago, and about 5 years ago, I found it, and I didn't even know at the time I had taken it. I went on to learn how to deliver the DISC and do that, you know, facilitate the DISC instrument, but I didn't know about that old test of me, and I looked at it. Exactly the same. It was like there was no difference, like 30 years later, to how I took it the month before, you know. So I don't know. And I think, but what you have to remember is it's yourself giving yourself feedback, right? You are answering the questions. It's not someone else telling you. So that's what you have to remember. It's like. It's you. You want to be mad, be mad.
It's like a mirror. It's just like a mirror. So.
You see how much I learned?
Last week I was in a workshop. It was, I don't know if you have heard about the Reading. Reading?
Reading, no.
Reading is a type of model diagnostic that bases in situational leadership.
Yeah.
So it tests how you are, but also tests in what place are you. So what is the environment around you. So it was really interesting. Two types of things. One is how I see myself, and I have changed a lot since last year to now. And I was aware when I was answering the questions that I maybe was trying to move it. Last time also, but I don't know if you really can do it because we have, I think, like 80 propositions, and in each proposition you have to choose 2 or 4. So after 20 minutes you are lost for what you have told.
Yes.
But the other thing that I wanted to tell you is that the process is what it was like a bootcamp. The process, the facilitator tried to accelerate you, try to press you, ridiculize your answers, not that maybe individually, but as a group.
Yeah.
But since you are being evaluated for your contribution, you know who are you. Nobody else maybe knows who you are, but when he is talking about that this answer was really a nonsense, you know that the answer was yours. So the whole time it's a lot of pressure. But they say that the main thing behind is that in that way, it also goes to 1 a.m. in the morning, beginning 8:30 in the.
It's a long time.
It's a long time, so you are also very
Worn down.
Yeah, but all the process is to focus you in giving your real,
True self.
your real you
Yes.
in the process. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's another kind of experiential learning, and the process try to develop your perception,
Yes.
because you are they are thinking that you are going to use the model, and you have to be very perceptive. In a moment, you see a movie. I don't remember the name of the movie. It's a really good one, and you have to choose each of the actors' personality or managerial style.
Yes.
So it's interesting. The process is interesting, and it put you really trying to do the work. Let's say.
Yes. It's all really about self-awareness. So you're like really trying to develop self-awareness.
So it pressures you to be yourself,
Yes.
not to try to
Be a
be
particular-
control maybe, but if you are deep,
Yes.
you will show it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I don't know. Do we have time? Really? Really? Oh, I didn't know. I thought we were going for 5 minutes from now.
No.
Good. Let's do. We'll just. I don't have a 30-minute activity. We have a quickie.
Okay, that's not quick.
We'll do a quickie.
Yeah.
Were you okay? Just out here in the hall?
Yeah.
Yes. In the room?
Any changes or anything?
I know, my watch is still on national time. That's what it is. I thought we were overtime, actually.
We could also do, don't touch me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
There's all kinds of things we could do.
You want a rope for don't touch me?
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're doing it. Yeah,